Absolutely. I would have that same relationship, but I never tried to get them to be me, be my level. I was just giving them information for them to pass a test or turn in an assignment. And I honestly, if I ever have the chance, I never plan to leave doctoral work. That is the level at which I now enjoy that mentorship. I love building students to become colleagues, and that's absolutely my goal now, anytime I deal with students.
Hey, Entreleaders, happy Wednesday and welcome to the 48th episode of the Leaders Lab podcast. We are continuing today with our Life After Doctor mini-series. Actually, I don't think I can call it a mini-series anymore because I've had so many guests now. So, series. And today's guest actually played a very important role. Played a very, very important role with me choosing what university I was going to go to. The program and everything. So I'm pleased to introduce our guest for today. His name is Dr. Christopher Linsky. Dr. Christopher Linsky completed his doctorate in management and post-doctorate in higher education leadership from Colorado Technical University. Some of his scholar-practitioner research has included the examination of Army non-commissioned officers' leadership behaviors, higher education support for disabled student veterans, nonprofit organization interventions, and generational shifts in theological preferences. Dr. Linsky began his professional background with military service during the global war on terrorism and Operation Iraqi Freedom. After retiring, he began work as a civilian employee for the Department of Defense. His passion for military veterans continued through the creation of a student veteran organization, and a transitioning veterans organization. He is also an executive officer for the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Additionally, Dr. Linsky previously owned a management consulting company in Colorado, focusing on human capital and process improvement. He has also served as a member of various community boards and committees in the fields of juvenile criminal justice, professional development, and doctoral academics. He specializes in providing companies with strategic guidance and organizational development expertise. Dr. Linsky has teaching experience including undergraduate, graduate, and doctoral programs in criminal justice, homeland security, business management, executive leadership, and research. He is currently a full-time professor of doctoral studies and adjunct senior dissertation chair. He also serves as an assistant karate instructor. I hope we're going to get into that a little bit more and talk about that. But he also serves as an assistant karate instructor and holds the rank of first degree black belt. Dr. Linsky also returned to school and is currently pursuing a master's degree in jurisprudence. The greatest personal interest for Dr. Linsky is his family. And it's one of the things that I admire most about him. His wife, Mandy, his 8-year-old daughter, and his 4-year-old son. Without further ado, Entreleaders, please help me welcome our special guest for today, Dr. Christopher Linsky. Welcome to the Leaders Lab, sir.
Hello. Thank you, Dr. Charity, for having me. It's a pleasure.
Oh, my goodness. I am so happy to have you here with me. First of all, I remember when we connected back in 2000, it's about 2012, 2013, when I was curious about CTU. And I was like, I don't really know if it's going to be like too much of a workload. I don't know about the whole symposiums every quarter and doing everything online. I don't know. And before I make a decision, I would really like to speak to someone. So the university, they connected me with you. And I was just like, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. I think we also connected on social media somehow. And I just bombarded you with questions. I bombarded you with questions and you were so patient with me. So Yeah, I will never forget that. Never forget that.
Me either. Honestly, one of the most interesting but most beneficial things in my life, post-doctorate or even while I was in my doctoral program, has been guiding future students. And now in my current role, getting those students to complete a doctoral degree and be one of the people that have an influence on that journey. And you are no exception. I am extremely pleased that you joined us at Colorado Technical University, and I'm extremely pleased with all of the progress you have made, both in your academic and professional life since our degrees.
Well, thank you. I'm trying to keep up with you. Prior to us starting the show, I told him I literally love watching his life on social media because he has the whole balance thing down together. Like he has the family time, which I love. He has the family time. He has I remember I remember when I saw your post about becoming a black belt, and I was like, what in the world? I was like, Chris is doing everything. He out here kicking people. Like, I mean, he is getting it, and still, working in the realm of academia. So what is that like for you? Because having that balance, I admire it so much. So what is that like for you?
Balance of work life is actually very difficult. I like to tell people it's really for show, and really the only reason I can do everything that I do is because I do it all from home. I teach online. My family, of course, here at home, I'm able to watch my kids grow up, and that was the most important factor for me when I looked at changing careers and moving into academia. I had to be able to be at home and not spend 8 to 12 hours a day away from my kids. So that was the number one most important thing, and will always be when I choose both careers and my pastime activities. So I'm going to jump straight into karate just for you, Dr. Charity. So my karate career, as it were, started with my daughter. And so she needed something to do, and my wife and I decided, that might be a great opportunity. We found a karate school that focused on self-defense, which of course at the time she was about 4 years old. And so it was really impressive that the school that we went to really focused on what we call TOTS and self-defense for little kids. And so she went and started her first couple of classes. And I think I sat through 2 classes before I said, you know what, I'm going to start this too. And it's been 4 years now, and I've completed my black belt and started teaching last year just before COVID. And so it's been an amazing journey in addition to all of the other things that happen in life. And another key note to make on that, though, is I got my wife involved 6 months later. I brought home a uniform and said, I signed you up. You're going to start on Monday. And she just this weekend passed her last test before she can move on to black belt screening. So she's hopefully in the next 6 months also going to be a black belt.
That is so cool. So now, and you have a 4-year-old son who I guess at some point he's probably also going to be inducted into the Linski Karate Society.
Yes.
That's what we're going to call it.
We spent actually this past weekend kind of preparing him. So, seeing if he's ready, going through some of our basic moves, essentially to see if at 4 years old, if he's able to sit still for a 45-minute class. He's not quite there yet. We're going to give him till the spring. But definitely he's gonna put that Linski name to another use in our karate community.
That's now what I'm calling you, the Linski Karate Collective, okay? And you must spell collective with a K because you have Linski with the K, and you have karate. So I'm just saying, excellent. This is just that. I think that's beautiful. Do you see, Entreleader? This is what I'm talking about when I say that I admire the way that he really he really prioritizes family. And I also appreciate you saying that you're able to do this. The primary reason you're able to do this is because of your position of being able to work from home.
Absolutely.
To do the things that you do from home. Not too long ago, the Bureau of Labor Statistics with the United States Department of Labor, they reported that people with any type of doctoral degree can earn over 50% more than those with a master's degree. And, we're in the sphere now. Well, I feel like for us, it's not anything new to learn from home and to work from home, because the majority of our doctoral program as a hybrid student we're learning online, we're learning from home, but every quarter we had to go to our symposiums, to our residencies. And so I working from home, doing what we do from home, of course, I don't feel like there was a learning curve for us.
Absolutely not.
When COVID hit.
Yes. Well, and that's the most important thing for a lot of both people, but also companies, is understanding that there are a lot of people that were doing this before COVID. And so, I've been doing online education over 10 years in conjunction with hybrid courses and ground courses. But moving into the ability of doing that exact same thing on the administrative side or on the faculty side was absolutely no different. The only difference is the communication. You do more communication through electronic means and stuff versus as a student, where you don't usually talk as much versus, of course, administration. Lots of meetings. And that's really actually beneficial because as I tell people, I like to say, I have ruined my capability of ever working a 9-to-5 job. And that's not for a bad thing. Absolutely, I think it's going to be really important for me continuing all of the things that I do. But I have spoiled myself from working from home and being able to be with my kids. And so at least until my kids are out of the house, I think I'm stuck with remote work.
I agree with you. Like I'm actually transitioning next year. Some big changes are happening with me. And so I will be doing more of the work that I love, but also I have been, I want to make sure that I stay in academia at some, to some extent, to some degree, because I have, like you said, we've been doing hybrid programs now for over 10 years. Even I was fortunate enough to snag a job teaching online for about 2.5 years with Southern New Hampshire University's. We used to call it distance learning. Do you remember that?
Yes.
We used to call it distance learning before, everybody's saying like online and things like that. But so I used to, I worked with Southern New Hampshire University in their communications department and taught several courses for them in that. So for me, I was like, this is what I want to do, because at some point, like you are currently living now, at some point, I do want to be able to have my family and see my children grow up and not be absent from their lives because, mommy's working so hard or daddy's working so hard trying to make sure that they build this legacy, forgetting that the legacy begins with your children, those who you have with you. So
exactly.
It sounds like, and I don't want to assume, but it sounds like some of the highs and lows that you've had, or maybe just the highs that you've had after receiving your doctorate is spending time with your children and your family and seeing them grow. But what are some of the other maybe highs and then also the lows that you've experienced after receiving your doctorate?
Well, the highs absolutely have been my ability to make an impact. And most of that's been in nonprofit work, but even in some organizations through consulting, is really being able to put my name on something and showing that I was there to impact that organization, make it better, or at least to improve the way it operates, the way that it handles its customers, its clients. But I would say the number one highest professional accolade outside of my role in academia is my work with a teen courts program. And as a board member and a governance chair for a teen court organization, I really got to understand the differences that have occurred in life for children since I was a kid. Life has changed so much. There are so many more stressors on teenagers these days, and it's difficult for anybody who doesn't take the time to really watch teens grow up. And I don't have a teen yet, and so I had a rude awakening when I joined this organization about the demands that teenagers have. Drug use, alcohol use, assaults, bullying, all kinds of things. And so my ability over about 3 years working with that organization to ensure that it was receiving grants necessary, updating policies, procedures, and assisting with their programs directly as a mentor, and working with the teens directly and understanding how to make their lives better. And most importantly for that organization was making sure that they didn't remain in the criminal justice system as a juvenile. And that's the most important thing. And the fact that I at least, hopefully, had one teenager that changed their life, went on a new direction because of something I said, something I did, something I helped with, is absolutely the highest thing I could think of.
Beautiful. I was going to ask, what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of having your doctorate? But for me, I don't see that as, I see that totally as an advantage, but not because you have your doctorate. I just see that as an advantage because of the work that you do, because of your work ethic, because of that. But what would you say that having this opportunity came as a result of having your doctorate, or maybe it was just because of your experiences?
It's kind of both. And the initial reason I joined that organization was because of one of my other colleagues in the program, who is a graduate of Colorado Technical University. And he was on the board before me, and he said, we need somebody with the organization development skills. We're looking at revamping these programs. And so it was both my network, but it was also because I had the knowledge and education and experience that came with that degree. And so without having it, I definitely wouldn't have ever gotten that position, just because I wouldn't have had that network, and I wouldn't have had the information and knowledge available to make those changes.
Obviously, that was, open doors, access to previously inaccessible things. But what would you say are some of the advantages and disadvantages of having your doctorate?
The very first advantage, and it really started as soon as I started my doctoral degree, was that it opened up different fields, different industries that I had never thought about getting into. My undergraduate and graduate degrees were in criminal justice and homeland security. As being a retired military service member, that's where I just naturally ended up. But once I got into my doctoral degree, I had to do some research studies during the program, during some coursework. And one of those was actually working with a nonprofit organization, which ended up being a domestic abuse organization. And I worked with them on, implementing volunteer training programs and making sure that their onboarding of new volunteers was beneficial. They were retaining those volunteers. And so as soon as I did that research study, I actually changed my doctoral degree. My concentration was Homeland Security before that. I actually changed it to organization development because I knew that idea of process improvement was exactly what I wanted to do. And that qualitative piece of talking to people, I really understood that I wanted to be a human capital specialist. Like, I love dealing with people. I love talking to people. But more importantly, I like to try to make people's lives better. And so that's absolutely the number one advantage. Was I would have never have thought of any of those things before I started my doctoral program. However, there are, of course, disadvantages. Unfortunately, the first disadvantage really comes in today's realm of social media. When you go out and you provide an opinion and you have a doctoral degree, you don't really have your opinion anymore. And it's difficult to understand that. But people say, well, you're a doctor, you must know everything, so your opinion must be based on fact. And yes, I try to research every comment I ever make on social media, because I want to make sure that it cannot be construed as misinformation. But sometimes it's just my opinion. Sometimes I just want to say, no matter what the facts are, this is what I'm going to do because I believe in it. And of course, in a post-COVID world, that got significantly worse in terms of trying to provide your own opinion. But most people also don't understand the difference between doctoral degrees. And so understanding what my specialty is, my specialty is organization development. I work in understanding business and how people work and operate and how to improve that. So most of the time, my opinion has nothing to do with that. So the disadvantage really is understanding what is that line between coming off as an expert in your field and providing scientific fact-related conversation versus providing my own opinion and letting people know, first of all, this is my opinion. Please note that before making comments.
How do you get people to respect that, for them to understand, listen, yes, I am Dr. Linsky, but what you are reading today is my opinion and not fact based on, research right now? Or is it that you always have to, because I feel like you said, then it puts us in a position to where we're no longer able to really just be ourselves. Like I think people forget that, because just because I have doctor in front of my name doesn't mean that I'm not a real person anymore. That's one of the reasons why I love the fact that you showcase things that you do with your family, like the karate. Like that was a highlight for me when I'm like, okay, you're out here kicking people, like you're still human, and that's one of the reasons why I still have, I have my travel brand and I have my my health and wellness brand, because just because I have DrCharityTV, that's not all who I am. I'm still having components of who I was before I ended up having, the credentials and the doctoral degree and things like that. So when you make these statements, do you feel like you always need to preface it with saying, this is my opinion, or, or this is, this is my expertise? Like,
exactly.
How do you feel about that?
Well, so it kind of goes two ways. So when it is my expertise, and unfortunately, I have seen, especially with the increase in social media, that a lot of people no longer use education as a basis for expertise. And so I get a lot of comments, well, that doesn't make you an expert. Sure, I understand that. And if you have more knowledge and more experience, or you have more facts that will back up your position, please share. I am a lifelong learner, which is why I'm still in college. I think I'm in my 12th year of college. I have to understand that there's absolutely chances that other people know more than me. And I am absolutely okay with taking new knowledge and incorporating it and changing my opinion. But if you're countering my factual statements, my empirical-based statements with your opinion, then I have to let you know that my expertise outweighs your opinion. So that's one of the hardest things, especially in social media, where sometimes it's, arguing with people you don't know, and sometimes they just argue for argument's sake. And I will tell you, which will lead into something you'll enjoy, is that's why I switched to TikTok last year. So I did move mostly from Facebook. I still have Facebook, but I use TikTok because TikTok allows me to simply have more fun with discussions. And when I first joined TikTok, it was a post-COVID, everybody's doing it. There's, nothing else to do while we're all sitting at home. And so I got on for the trends. I got on for the music and the lip syncing and all of that. And I did a few of those. But I also tried to add in some knowledge pieces. I tried to, provide some expertise, but then it really just became personal. I just started talking to people, giving my opinions without having that preface that this is not an expert opinion. This is me trying to be Chris, not Dr. Linsky.
I told you before that I was going to ask you about the whole TikTok thing. Like, what are you doing on TikTok? Like, honestly, there have for some time, like going back into definitely last year. People. So we actually have TikTok. is a part of ByteDance company, which is here in China. It's based here in China. And so here in China, we have the Chinese version of TikTok, which is Douyin. And that started first. So I had an account with Douyin and, I was here trying to do it. But everybody, you have to have subtitles and everything. So I'm just like, I don't want to really do it. Then literally the next year, there's TikTok. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like TikTok is released and, people are getting on it and they're like, oh, there's this new sensation. And in my mind, I'm like, it's really not new. Like it's super popular in China. Like I literally just said no to the version of China and now the whole world is TikToking. And so people were like, oh, you should have a TikTok. And I'm like, no, because I don't want to have to, do things that I'm not really interested in, just for trend's sake.
Yes.
But then I started seeing more businesses, and entrepreneurs using it to share their opinions and their expertise in ways to where, some of them were doing my style, where they're just talking to the camera, giving bite-sized pieces of information. And they had like all these views, no subtitles, by the way, no subtitles, just views. And I'm like, So when I saw that you had TikTok, and I'm like, well, what are you doing on TikTok?
My TikTok is not very popular. I've not gone viral yet. You never know, right? After this, Dr. Charity is going to help me out. I started first, actually, I jumped on with my military experiences, which was, I've got a lot of followers and I follow a lot of people who are just, military service members and veterans. And so building that community where, in the community of the military, it's really difficult sometimes after you discharge from the military to stay connected with the military community. I specifically used that platform to kind of engage with what is current in the military. I've been out of the military since 2007, so a lot has changed. And just the way people are really the connections that are necessary. Social media has been a really good influencer in being able to stay connected with people, and the military is no different. So that's what started. But I honestly didn't have a lot of military content because I am a veteran, so there's only so many stories I can tell. So I started moving into just, here's my tip of the day, my opinion of the day, and sometimes my opinion that nobody else is going to like, but I'm going to say it anyway because I want to get it out there. And it's not on Facebook, so all of the people I know don't necessarily know that opinion. So it's kind of a more freeing experience to be able to talk more real. My Facebook has a lot of professional contacts, especially my LinkedIn is all professional contacts. And so some of those personal opinions you just don't share with those groups. So this allowed me to do both.
I love it. So you make sure that you use TikTok to basically be free. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. I mean, like
Yes.
to be yourself, to be free, and to not have to have, people who know a certain version of you to,
Yes.
to be held to their expectations. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I have a personal Facebook, but I literally never, ever, I'm never on my personal Facebook. I may get on my business Facebook, DrCharityTV, because I'm posting things there, or I'm passively sending things through there. But I use Instagram, I use LinkedIn, I use Twitter, and I have one video on TikTok. I have one video on TikTok, and I think it has like 477 views. That's, and I was surprised that I got that. But that
That's
was
about
like
my
months
average,
ago.
so you're doing good.
That was like months ago, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't really know, but 2022, I am going to be intentional about TikTok and Twitter, and continue with Instagram, because I've gotten much, much better with Instagram. Like I told you before the show, living here in China, I'm using all Western social media platforms that really they're not allowed in China, and I have to do that through different workarounds. And so If I were to be lazy or just not care, like you said, if I just really don't feel like hearing someone, bickering about my opinions or trying to, compare that with someone else's expertise, then I would just be like, you know what? I don't need to use social media. But in reality, I do because of the nature of my brands and my business. So I love that you brought that up because it means that it's not just me who's like, sometimes you just want to show all of you as a holistic being, I'm not one dimensional. I'm not one dimensional. It's not just Dr. Charity. It's not just Dr. Christopher. We have multiple sides to us. And again, I cannot say this enough. I love how you display that. Even on LinkedIn, I think I found, I'm not sure, but I think it was on LinkedIn where you were talking about the karate and the black belt. Like, I was like, yes. Chris, this is genius. You put it on LinkedIn.
And I only put it on LinkedIn because, of course, that's my personal side, so I usually wouldn't. But the post you probably saw was when I went to a national competition. And so that championship was my first national competition as a karate expert at that time. I had finally gotten my black belt. And so this was my first real competition. And I did pretty well. I got a first, a second, and a third place, so I'll take those. But it showed that no matter what else I was doing, like I could still have personal time. I could still have a quality hobby. Because one of the things when we start karate, especially at my age, and I'm still under 40, but in karate years, that's pretty old to start karate. And so, we're always told there's only so much you can do at your age as a martial artist. And so when I started, it was just for fun. It was just because, my daughter was doing it. I wanted to be around her, but it looked like fun. But then I started and really got into it myself, and then it became a personal goal to get that black belt. And then once I got that, it was like, well, now I need to show it off, right? I need to show how good I am because I reached this level. And so, yes, I posted that on LinkedIn. I got a really good response. A lot of people responded to it. A lot of people liked it. And what it showed is people actually want to see both sides of you if it's in a positive manner. And so while I won't be sharing my personal family stuff or anything like that, I treat my karate career as another profession. And so when I use that, it really is saying I'm not just an academic. I'm not just a retired service member. There are more things in life that are going to happen, and I'm still very young. And so I'm going to continue to hit as many milestones as I can. I told my wife yesterday when she got her last belt before her black belt, my next goal. And my next goal is 5th degree black belt, which usually takes about 15 years. So I've got a very long plan in terms of my hobby that I now consider an additional profession.
I love the fact that you said I'm not just an academic. I feel like that needs to be a campaign. Like when you said it, it just moved everything in me. I'm like, that's the story of my life. Like, I'm not just an academic. There are so many other pieces to me and so many other pieces to the puzzle of my life. And I love that. I love that. Has it been for you a struggle? Because for me, I've been trying to find how do I make everything come together? Because generally when I see all of my professors that I still admire and adore to this day, when I look at them in CTU, I feel like they brought the diversity, because they were entrepreneurs. Many of them were entrepreneurs. They also were our, academics. And then they had other things going on in their life. And I'm just like, wow. Now, of course, with their students, they didn't necessarily share that, but you could see through some of the stories that they shared, especially after graduating, becoming colleagues with them, being able to, learn more about them and their lifestyle. But traditionally speaking, many of the professionals or the academics that I saw, they were just so serious. They were just so serious in academics, and their primary focus was on publishing and having that type of title or that type of respect and reverence, where the only thing they did, seemingly the only thing they did was, academics. But now I feel like this, and maybe I feel like this because this is me, but I feel like there's a new dynamic where it's like, hashtag not just an academic. Like, I'm loving that, like what you said, seriously. But I'm feeling like that's the thing, I'm not just an academic. I have other things in life that life is meant to be fun. I can't be, uptight and only just. So have you noticed that as well? I mean,
yes, it really becomes a difference based on the level of education that you're teaching. And the reason I say that is when I started teaching doctoral programs, I got my doctorate at 29 years old, and I started teaching at 28 years old. And so by the time I completed my doctorate, most of the students that I had were much older than I am. And that's still true today. And so I will have even my current students. I retired as a non-commissioned officer in the Army, and I have colonels, in my programs that are my students, and they are probably 25, 30 years older than I am. And so when you have the title, both as the professor, it's understanding that there has to be a balance. Yes, I am Dr. Linsky to my doctoral students. And yes, I'm going to share with you my professional side 99% of the time. When that changes is when you become a mentor versus a professor. And I have so many, because especially my program has a dominant military veteran population. And so we connect on that level, and we talk about our experiences in the military, but we talk about how that transition to civilian life impacted us, or maybe they're going through it right now. And so I'm able to share those little bits of me that were my personal side, those personal opinions. And what I find is when we move from teacher-student relationship to mentorship, the mentorship allows us to be a little bit more personable, but it also allows the student to be a little bit more personable. And I have found throughout my years now of about 8 years, I think, of teaching, the more personable you are, the more they will come to you when there's a problem. When life happens, you don't just get an email that says, hey, I'm going to be late. You get a story, and when you can build that story, you understand your students, then you know how to really assist them. And sometimes it's just a shoulder to say, I understand, please take an extra day or two, or whatever is needed. And sometimes it's that you have to be strict and say, well, I'm still the professor. And there is a line there, and I've really the only thing that separates that for me is social media. So I don't add students to Facebook, right? Once you graduate, if we had a mentorship responsibility or role, then I will connect with you on LinkedIn, right? Because I have a lot of students on LinkedIn. And so connecting with students in a professional manner to make sure that while they're a student, it doesn't look like there's bias, there's no personal relationships, anything like that. That's really important. And I was told that one of the first years teaching was not to give out your cell phone. Well, I do that anyway because I want students to have direct access to me. And if you call me at 10 o'clock at night, I'm going to call you the next morning. My phone's going to be turned off anyway. And so those are the kinds of things that there is a shift in traditional academia. And I think online education is helping that because online education has a lot of adjuncts, and adjuncts are part-time that they have another career. And most of the time they're mentoring students on how to become part of that career versus just the academic side. It's not just lecture-based. And so when you have lectures and the students just turn in assignments, you give them a grade and they move on, you don't really build that relationship. Versus doctoral students, we're trying to build colleagues. And that's a whole different environment that you really have never thought about until you reach that level. And you're like, yeah, an undergraduate student, absolutely, I would have that same relationship, but I never tried to get them to be me, be my level. I was just giving them information for them to pass a test or turn in an assignment. And I honestly, if I ever have the chance, I never plan to leave doctoral work. That is the level at which I now enjoy that mentorship. I love building students to become colleagues, and that's absolutely my goal now, anytime I deal with students.
What's three things that you wish you had known prior to reaching the level where you are now? You know, prior to becoming the professor, the mentor, prior to becoming this person, I still say balanced. I know you say it's a facade, but honestly, who says that balance means perfection? Like, let's just go ahead and put that out there. Like, I think that you are imperfectly, perfectly balanced. Like, if that's how you want to say it. But what are three things that you really wish someone would have told you, being a millennial, now with your doctorate? You know, like what are at least three things that you think you would have been like, it would have been nice for me to know that before I started down this road?
Oh my goodness. The first thing would have been the mental drain that occurs, especially in the role of academia. I love my work, and if I can do academia forever, I'd love to. But especially in doctoral academia, reading dissertations and doctoral studies every day, that is my key role in my position in both of the universities I teach in. And so I spend every day reading dissertations. I get mentally drained pretty quick. And so you rarely get vacation time in academia. Both of my programs have continual classes, so there's no break for full-time professors. And so you have to use that vacation time. I'm starting to learn that. Even weekends, I'm trying my hardest not to use weekends for professional work. That's difficult, right? You get one day behind and it's hard to catch up, but definitely trying to balance that work life is more than just putting all of the pieces on a plate and figuring out how they fit together into a little pie chart of your time. It really becomes, what is it every day? I have a task list. Every day I have to understand the division of time. And from day to day, from week to week, those change dramatically based on the number of students that turn in their assignments, the number of students that are preparing defenses, the number of karate classes we have this week. So many things make a mental drain. So the first thing is understanding work-life balance and how to say, I need a vacation, or I'm going to take my leave for this couple of days or this week. And I'm finally starting to get that. It's important to understand that we all need a mental break. And for that to happen, you have to take your vacation time. You have to take your weekends. And I have finally started doing that, mostly because my organization required it last year. They administratively started pushing their professors to take their time off. And so I said, you know what, that's an excellent idea. Let's take some vacation time. I spent it with family, but not just sitting at home. We went out and did stuff. We went to the mountains and had a great time as a family without the distractions of work. And so that's definitely the first important lesson that I wish I knew, was how to have done that a lot earlier than I did now. But the second is very similar, and that is understanding that I have to be able to say no. When I took my first positions, when I first got my doctoral degree, I had, I think, 12 total roles in all the organizations that I worked with. I was working with nonprofits. I was working with different levels of the Veterans of Foreign Wars in officer positions. I was working, 2 different jobs, and I was just always doing something. I had no free time. And so understanding that sometimes you have to say no. And even at a job, if it's more than what you're required to do, sometimes you have to say no. And sometimes you just have to say no to yourself. Like I have been pushing and pushing and pushing, but I can't do that anymore. And whatever it is that I need a break from, whatever it is that you do as a person that alleviates your stress, if you just sit and do it and do it and do it, you're just gonna burn out. And I got really, really close to burnout a few years in. But I finally learned to say no. I dropped about half of my positions. I added a few more, and then I got rid of a couple more. And so now what I find is I have to be doing something. That's why I took another degree, because I love to punish myself.
Obviously, you do love to punish yourself, because I was like, I'm sorry, you're doing what, sir? Like, okay, you know what? You are taking this whole life learner thing to a whole nother level. Like,
I plan to learn forever. And I told my wife, because she's in her last class of her undergraduate degree. And so she's, determining whether or not she wants to go to a graduate degree. And she said, but I'm going to take 6 months off. And I did the same thing after my doctoral degree. Before I got my postdoc, I took about a year off. But about 6 months in, I was like, I'm bored. I'm doing so much stuff, but I'm bored in terms of learning. And so all the things I was doing was practicing. I was only doing it, but I wasn't learning anything new. And so for me, like, I was bored. I was mentally bored. And so that's what led me to my postdoc. And then it took me about 5 years after that before I said, nope, let's go ahead and do another one. And so this summer I said, let's go ahead and enroll to another course. But this will be it. I told my wife, after this, I'm not allowed to take another college degree, but I can do executive education. I have to be able to continue learning, but I'll take seminars and short classes, mostly because college degrees cost a lot of money.
You get like certification, certificates and things.
Absolutely.
Executive education.
Yes.
Wow. And what about the third thing?
The third thing really is more personal life, and it has nothing to do with a doctoral degree. But it's kind of the life lesson that happened while I was getting my degree. In 2012, I got divorced, which was the year I started my doctoral degree. And I had to understand how to take care of myself as a person. This coming from someone who has post-traumatic stress and had traumatic brain injuries from my military service, I was still dealing with that. And that had been about 6 years since those things occurred. I was still dealing with it. But what happened for myself and why I got divorced was I had a moment of clarity in my life that said, your relationship is causing some of your problems. And it's not that the relationship wasn't a good relationship in terms of, the love was there, but connecting with people, just because people are good for a relationship doesn't mean it's good for you as a person. And so I had to figure out how the people in my life impacted me. And I found that there are parts of that relationship that continue to inhibit my ability to move on from my traumas. And so I had to take that step and say, I have to put myself first. So I did that. And of course, that was during my doctoral degree, and I almost quit my program. In fact, I almost quit 3 times in my program. But I had a group, and you may know them, Dr. Karina Robinson and Dr. Lonnie Wright, and them and Reverend Kenneth Johnson, those 3. So we used to have an email thread for our cohort, and those were 3 people in that email thread. And I sent out an email, and I said, I don't think I can come back on Monday. And they send me an email back collectively. All of them said if I didn't show up on Monday, that they would drive to Colorado Springs and they would make sure that I returned. And it really was a kick in the butt that said, even though life is hard, you have people behind you, and we're going to make sure you get to that finish line. And so I really understanding that the people around you are the most important. And if it's negative and it's creating negativity, you have to make a change. But you also have to surround yourself with those positive people, those people who will push you. They will threaten to kick your butt and get you there on Monday morning. And sometimes, and I needed that. I absolutely needed that. I needed someone to kick my butt and put me in gear. And now I'm here. And none of that would have happened if I'd have left.
You know, you mentioning that it makes me miss the camaraderie that I had with my cohort. You know, it's a different playing field when you are sharing an experience with people. You know, when you're sharing your whole educational experience with like-minded people. It's different. You do form a bond with the people that you are actually, you know, going through a program with, as opposed to the people who are still your friends on the outside, but it's just different, you know, because they're going through many of the same changes that you are. And so they're understanding, you know, that relatability is there. So, okay, this has been amazing so far. And it really feels like the Leaders Lab right now has like couches in it. Like we're just lounging around right now. Like we're just lounging around, catching up and everything. And it's been really awesome. But I do have like one final question. It's Absolutely. Like now it's becoming the question of the lab now. So I'm going to ask you the question in the lab. What is one characteristic you believe every leader, no matter the field, should possess? One characteristic that you believe that every leader should possess. You know,
it's going to be an interesting statement. Procrastination.
I'm sorry. Wait, what? Wait a minute. What?
I am the worst procrastinator, and I have told this to all of many of my professors, many of my colleagues. If my bosses are watching this, you did not hear this. But I am a very big procrastinator in the sense that I have to have a deadline. If I don't put a deadline on a task, it never gets done. And that happens in my academic research. I have been working on that academic research on theological preferences for about 3 years now. And even though I do research every day, the concept of research and working with students on research, the reason I say procrastination is because we have to understand as leaders how everybody else works differently than us. And so if I have a leadership style, if I have a mentoring style, if I do anything the way that I think other people want me to be, it's not going to work out well. Instead, I have to figure out what it is that the person that I'm trying to mentor best needs. If you tell me that time management is the best way for me to work, I'm going to tell you absolutely that's very wrong. And it doesn't work. And I've tried since I started my doctoral program, before I started my doctoral program, and as a professor in all of my roles, I tell myself every quarter for new classes, this will be the day I don't wait until the last day to grade assignments. I still wait until the last day to grade assignments. And I don't do it because there's a rationale for it, in terms of I need to wait to grade these assignments. But it's because I have so many other things in life that I prioritize by deadline. And anytime that there's not a deadline, the rest of it goes to my family. If you don't understand that as a mentor, and you were to say, because we preach time management in doctoral programs, but time management doesn't mean what you think it means. It's how I think it means, what works best for me. And what works best for me is if you tell me as my boss, here's a deadline, get this done, it's going to be done. If you tell me, hey, I'm looking at this, will you please do it? I might get to it in a couple of weeks. And so if it's important, let me know it's important. But I think that transitions into life, and it transitions especially into mentorship. We all have great experiences. Sometimes they're negative experiences. But if I take what I have learned, if I take my life experiences, they're not going to be exactly the same as yours. They're not going to lead to the same outcome. They're not going to come to the same expectation. If I tell somebody else, this is what happened, take the moral of the story and use it. I have to be able to connect that to, how does this exact experience connect to your experiences? If I don't ever know what those experiences are, I don't ever know what it is that you're trying to connect this to, you're probably going to hear the story and you're going to forget it. But if I take that time to build a connection between how my story or my moral of my story connects directly to you in the situation, in this experience, you're probably going to use it. And hopefully, and I've gotten many of these comments from students, so I'm hoping it continues to work. But that one step of building from leadership to mentorship and saying, now how does this relate to you? How can I connect what I have learned to best assist you? And then you have to take the ball. You have to share with me enough information so that I can give you a quality response. In life, we hide lots of things from people. As we talked about even on social media, there are parts of our lives that not everybody knows, which also means I can't give you advice about something when I only know 25% of who you are. That's a really big, important key for leadership, for mentorship, and overall just being a really good person.
Right. Wow. That was great. All right. Thank you for that. And literally that knocked me off all the way completely. But you explained it in a way that I was like, oh, he's good. You explained it in a way where I'm like, okay, all right. He just fixed it. Because I'm like, did he just say procrastination?
Yeah.
If that's the case, I might be an amazing leader. I mean,
I am never going to
that.
end it. I'm never going to stop. I can't. I've tried for it is, I would say, if you put me on a pie chart, 73% of that is going to be procrastination. And then the rest of that, besides 1%, is going to be family. And then the other 1% is going to be every other thing in my life.
I love it. I love it. So honest. And I love the whole thing about time management is in the eye of the beholder, basically.
Absolutely.
Like time management is in the eye of the beholder. Wow. Listen, and Entreleaders, I know that you all have enjoyed this episode of the Leaders Lab podcast. I don't know if you enjoyed it as much as I have, but because I have literally been sitting over here. Of course, you know, guys, I take notes when I have. You don't sit in the presence of leadership. You don't sit in the presence of wisdom and not take notes. I learned that from a mentor several years ago. You can't leave everything to your memory. And so, yes, I'm even as the host of this podcast, I'm sitting over here, I'm taking notes. I'm like, oh my God, this is great. So listen, Dr. Christopher Linsky, how can people get in touch with you? Obviously, we know about TikTok. Now we know about your TikTok. Okay, I'm
just
going to
remember, if you see me on TikTok, you don't know me on TikTok. That's the rule.
But how can people also get in touch with you?
Oh, absolutely. The best way is LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn every day. So please reach out, connect with me. Let me know that you're joining from Dr. Charity so that I know to connect with you. But if you need advice, if you want to know, especially doctoral programs or education, if you're a military veteran, anything I can do to assist, especially in your professional lives, please feel free to reach out. Let me know who you are and where you found me. But I am here. Mentorship is my life, even though I do it in academia and I do it for veterans. I'm here to be as honest and open as I can with people. And if I can provide any advice for you, for your followers, I'm here to be of assistance. So please let me know.
For those of you who are listening to the audio version of this, I have up there linkedin.com/n/Linsky3, and TikTok is at DrSki3. But you can also just go to the show notes and you'll be able to see all of his details right there in the show notes. And don't forget that you can also connect with me on social media everywhere. I'm literally on everything, but active is a different story, okay? But I'm literally on everything at DrCharityTV. And again, I can't say enough, Dr. Christopher Linsky, thank you so much for coming to the Leaders Lab on today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast. I've enjoyed catching up with you and hopefully providing some great information for your followers.
So good. So good. So good. All right. Listen, everyone, thank you so much for tuning into the episode of the Leaders Lab podcast. And I'll see you guys next week in the lab.
Thank you for listening to the Leaders Lab podcast. Visit our website at www.drcharitytv.com.